Hello and welcome to another episode of Brainstorm EDH. My name is Ike, and I want this channel to offer some fun, casual commander deck building ideas in order to brainstorm over the many possible commanders throughout Magic's awesome history. Nothing competitive, just for fun with friends. And as you'll notice, there's no particular budget we're working off of, it's just whatever we find fun. As with every deck, everyone will have their own preferences regarding what cards they'll include within their deck, so please take the recommendations within this video as simply suggestions. If you have any suggestions to offer the community regarding the commander we're about to discuss, then please comment on the video and tell us what they are. In this episode, we're going to go over a deck list for Bristly Bill Spine Sower. Bristly Bill is a 2/2 plant druid with the following abilities. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and then an activated ability which costs 3 generic mana and 2 green mana, and states double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Bristly Bill is incredibly powerful, with his second ability being one of the 2 big focuses of this deck. As for the other focus, a sorcery called Slime Against Humanity. I absolutely love cards that allow us to run multiples of it in a commander deck, and Slime Against Humanity is one of those. It's a sorcery for 2 generic mana and 1 green mana, and it creates a 0/0 ooze token with trample that will have a number of +1/+1 counters placed on it that scales to the amount of Slime Against Humanity cards that you have in your graveyard or even exile. Due to the fact that these tokens enter naturally with multiple +1/+1 counters, and that they also naturally possess trample, it means that Slime Against Humanity is absolutely phenomenal in a Bristly Bill deck. And now that we've gone over the theme of the deck, let's jump into the deck building categories. This deck will have the following categories: card draw, ramp, protection, non-counter value, counter value, oozes, and finally lands. Notice there's no category for removal. This deck is 100% focused on advancing our game plan to win as soon as possible. This style of deck is known as a linear deck, and it's an absolute blast to play. It sounds odd, I know, but after playing many games with this strategy, I can confirm that it really works. Now let's move on to discussing the card draw category, which was tough with this deck. Most of Green's card draw relies on casting creature spells, or having non-token creatures enter the battlefield. However, since our deck is completely focused around Slime Against Humanity, the aforementioned conditions simply can't be met. As it's a sorcery that creates a creature token, making our card draw options are quite limited. This means that we're going to run several spells that cost 4 mana or even greater to ensure that we have good, solid card draw. Despite the fact that I would normally only run card draw spells that cost 3 mana or less. The cards in this category are the following: the Immortal Sun, Oren Frostfang, Staff of Min, Sylvan Library, Keeper of Fables, Toski Bearer of Secrets, Return of the Wild Speaker, Harmonize, and the One Ring. The Immortal Sun does many things for us, but I decided to include within this category because its primary purpose in this deck is to draw us cards. Oren Frostfang, Keeper of Fables, and Toski Bearer of Secrets are incredible, repeatable sources of burst card draw. They're particularly good in this deck because our ooze tokens come with trample, thus making it much more likely that they'll get through to deal combat damage to our opponents. Return of the Wild Speaker is not only going to be an enormous burst of card draw, but can also potentially give us that little bit of oomph we need to finish off our opponents. Next up, Ramp. This category includes Nature's Lore, Soul Ring, Rampant Growth, Overgrowth, Kodama of the West Tree, Glimpse the Core, Primal Amulet, Worn Power Stone, and 3 Visits. Primal Amulet is definitely an odd card to have in a green deck, but in this case it's a great include, including the transform side, Primal Wellspring. As for Kodama of the West Tree, it's absolutely silly in this deck, granting the ability for all of our oozes to ramp us when they deal combat damage to our opponents. A nice thing about this deck is that the majority of the mana costs for our spells are around 3 mana, which means that we can still get a solid start without ramp. However, it's vital that we get access to 5 mana in order to activate our commander's activated ability that doubles all of the +1/+1 counters on our creatures. Any more mana than that is just icing on the cake, and may even allow us to activate our commander multiple times in a turn cycle. The next category is Protection. This one is self-explanatory and simply contains Heroic Intervention, Inspiring Call, and Smuggler's Surprise. The only thing I'll say here is that, through playtesting, I know that our creatures get ridiculously large very quickly, which makes Smuggler's Surprise easily work for us, despite the fact that it only protects creatures with power 4 or greater. Now it's time for non-counter value. This category will focus on strong cards that help us, however don't buff the number of +1/+1 counters we'll place on our oozes. This category contains the following: Shadow Spear, Loxodon Warhammer, Gruff Triplets, Conduit of Worlds, Vedalken Orrery, and Parallel Lives. Within my playgroup, I've grown to love having some way to gain life in almost every deck. Therefore, I included Shadow Spear and Loxodon Warhammer. Shadow Spear is also incredible because it ensures that just because our opponents may have indestructible creatures, it doesn't mean they're safe. Gruff Triplets is absolutely incredible in any deck that works with counters and tokens. Conduit of Worlds is simply a personal pet card that ensures we have a shot at replaying whatever our opponents attempt to get rid of. Vedalken Orrery is essentially a haste enabler for us, while also allowing us to play more strategically at instant speed. Next, it's time for counter value. The cards here are the Ozolith, Quilled Greatworm, Innkeeper's Talon, Court of Garenbrig, Vorinclex Monstrous Raider, Branching Evolution, Doubling Season, Death's Presence, Nyxbloom Ancient, and finally Illusionist's Bracers. Notice most of the cards that increase the number of counters placed on our creatures double said number. I opted to go for that over cards such as Hardened Scales, due to the fact that starting from the get-go, we'll be placing multiple counters on our creatures at a time. Doubling Season not only doubles our +1/+1 counters, but will also double the number of ooze tokens we'll be creating. Also, I chose to include Nyxbloom Ancient in this category due to the fact that it will enable us to activate Bristly Bill's activated ability several times over. The final non-land category we'll be discussing is Oozes. This category simply contains Slime Against Humanity. We'll be including a whopping 30 copies of this card in our deck. This ensures that we always have access to this card, even though the number of oozes needed can be as little as 1 ooze per person, before we begin activating our commander's ability. Lastly, we have lands. These are Demolition Field, Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter, Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, Rogue's Passage, Temple of the False God, Reliquary Tower, Myriad Landscape, Takacia's Dig Site, Terrain Generator, and 22 Basic Forests. I included multiple single-target land destruction lands to take care of pesky lands such as Mazavin. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, grants our colorless lands the ability to generate green mana. Myriad Landscape is a great, simple way to ramp us, and Terrain Generator is useful for the same thing with the large number of basic lands we'll be running. With all the categories covered, let's talk gameplay. I found that it's best to get Bristly Bill out as soon as possible, then get at least one ooze per opponent. Oftentimes, one ooze per opponent is more than enough, as they will explode in size once we're able to start activating Bristly Bill. It's important to stress once again that this deck is very aggressive, and we should be attacking every single turn, if at all possible, with an unstoppable mass of oozes. And with that, that's the end of this video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you found this helpful. Are there cards you'd include that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments. Do you disagree with any of my inclusions? Feel free to let me know. As mentioned, this channel is dedicated to brainstorming all the possibilities. So if you have any brainstorming to add in yourself, please do so. Have a great day, and I hope to have you all tune in again for the next video.